So what I'm going to talk about today is, and what we're going to show you is a few things about, we've heard a lot about the digital world and communication and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So to get started, what changed? What happened the past few years that, changed all the different things that we've talked about today, the digital transformation, the digital customer, etc. So one thing that has happened in the past years, and really since the launch of the iPhone, right? So the past 10 years really, is mobile, right? Everybody has a mobile phone now, and not just a mobile phone, those were there before that, but a smartphone. And smartphones are not only used for doing voice communication, they're used for a lot of other things. They're used for messaging, they're used for apps, and they're used for social interactions, all shapes, forms, etc. of that. And that was really one of the key drivers for that change of behavior in people, in how they interact amongst themselves, but also how they interact with businesses. That technological shift changed the way customer engagement happens. It changed the way field services management happens. In the past, that was all paper-based, etc. Today, they use tablets, they use smartphones, they use things like that, digital technologies. And that changes the way things get done, it changes the pace things get done, it changes the expectation people have on how things get done, but it also changes how companies internally need to operate and what tools they need to be using to stay with their customers. Because at the end of the day, as it was mentioned before, it's all about the customer. It starts with the customer, with the contact center. That's the technology that is used in our industry to interact with the customer. And it's a contact center, it's not a call center anymore, because people are not only calling in. And this is the key change, and as you can see on this chart, there's two consequences in that. As expectations on the customer side change, in the way they interact, expectations change, and it changes the way how we have to work internally in the enterprise. And we as a whole industry, as a UC industry, all the vendors here, Mitel, we're at fault a lot of the past years. Really, the whole UC revolution, the only thing we talked about was the knowledge worker, the worker at their desk, what they can do with presence, what they can do with IM, what they can do with a soft client. That's one aspect of it. But what we really, what we lost in that is it needs the entire chain, right? What happens if a customer wants to talk to you? How does he communicate into the enterprise, and how does that translate to something that needs to happen within the organization? And are the tools we have there the right tools to enable the response times that people expect? Today, people expect instant response times. They IM in or something, and they expect a response. You can't say, you know what, we're going to get back to you in 3 days from now. That's not what people expect. Amazons, etc., they set the policy. You order something, you get the physical delivery 2 hours later. That's the kind of expectation people have today, and that's also changing the way when they interface with a company, what they expect that company to deliver. So you need to have the tools to interact with the customer, but you also need to have the tools, processes in place inside the company to actually absorb that incoming communication, whichever way it comes in, whether it's through web, chat, email, voice, video, the list goes on and on and on. And that is really one of the fundamental aspects in this digital transformation that we need to talk about, and how do we address that? Because at the end of the day, you see it in social media all the time, all these hashtags. The last thing you want to read is a post on Twitter or on Facebook with your company name on there and the thing over to the left. That's what you want? The thing over to the right, you know, my customer experience with that and that company was awful. My flight was awful. The service was awful. All of that. In the past, you know what? You had a customer complaining. So, you know, he wasn't happy. You may have lost a customer. Today, in the digital world, you have a customer in the morning that's disgruntled. The service wasn't right. He puts it on Twitter. It gets retweeted. Somebody puts it on Facebook. And before you get home in the evening, or when you get home in the evening and switch on the TV, it's on national television as, you know, a failure of a big company to deliver on somebody's expectations. And there's a lot of companies that got burned. There's airlines, there's other companies, you know, that have experienced that. And that's really why, you know, not only things always happen, there will always be things that go wrong in a business, in a service, etc. But part of it is, how do you react to it? You know, if a post somewhere happens, how do you react to that? What action do you take? And those evolving customer expectations, that's what businesses need to respond to. Increased pace, off business hours, using new methods of communication, and customers demanding the flexibility. But once you deliver that, the customer relationship actually improves, and you will get much more loyal customers. And that's a key thing. And that's also what all the analysts out there are saying is, you know, at the end of the day, if things go wrong, they might come in through a chat message or something else. That's where it starts. But at the end of the day, you need to deliver what's right for the customer. If it's a human interaction that it takes to resolve that, no matter which way the complaint came in for, that's what you need to deliver. And at the end of the day, that's going to be the major differentiator for all the companies out there on how they're going to compete. Because products and services in a global world are very comparable. If you think you're the only one doing something, think again. There's probably half a dozen companies out there that do things as well, or do very comparable products, deliver very comparable services that you do. But one way to differentiate is the customer experience and the customer journey. Because if you have happy customers, loyal customers, that's the best thing that can happen to you as a business, because they'll keep on buying. They'll keep on coming back, because why should they switch? You're serving them well, there's a need, they're covered. If something goes wrong, they're covered. So why should they ever go somewhere else? And that's really the thing that's changing in this world. And, you know, that's what we need to respond to. And it's not just a response in a formal interaction. It can be an informal interaction. You know, they don't complain like that. They put something on a social media channel, and they say, you know, something's not working, or this and that. And those are the types of tools that people today use. They use Twitter and complain about something fairly publicly. They use Facebook. They use Snapchat. They're not going to go to your website and look for your email address and send you an email with a complaint. Another one of those apps is, of course, WhatsApp, used in a lot of ways. And we don't do all the integrations, so this is what also Jonathan mentioned before in terms of integrations. These are exactly the types of integrations that we need to work together on. And it's the types of things that, if you think ahead, it's not necessary for people to get involved in that at the very front end of that. You know, there is lots of tools, you know, AI, etc., that are going to take over the front-end filtering of that. They're going to parse, you know, Twitter feeds. They're going to do this. They're going to do that, and proactively grab out the things that are important and funnel them to your agents in your company. And that is really the thing where all of those technologies, we see all of that coming together now. There's UCC, you know, there's contact center, there's customer experience, there's cloud. Cloud is really central in all of that because, WhatsApp is a cloud application. Smartphones are connected to the cloud. That bring all of that together and really drive this digital transformation that we're talking about today. But that's not the end of the journey. It's actually just the beginning of the journey, because you may have heard of a term of IoT, right? Internet of Things, connected devices. And that's the next dimension after that. The smartphone is an IoT device, and there is a billion of them out there. But there is a lot of other devices that are being connected to the internet as we speak. And it's not only the public examples, like fridges and all these other things that you hear on the news, what people hook up to the internet. There is a lot more down-to-earth things, a lot of sensors in a room, in a building, etc., that deliver little bits of information here and there that drive real value and that enhance the context of a communication like we just saw, to make it a lot more powerful and a lot more meaningful to everybody. And that is really what drives the efficiency and the productivity while introducing new services. So why is that so? So if you really think about a connected venue or just about the thing of facility solutions and what all the technologies are that go into that, there's a lot of services, connectivity, convenience type things that can be delivered. There's user experience type things that can be delivered through beacons, tracking, cameras, wearables, all of that. And it's happening as we speak, smartwatches, etc. Millions of those devices get sold every day. And what all of that does is it forms, a gigantic source of information, because all of those devices communicate with some sort of cloud service, and they upload their data to that cloud service. And what the value of that is not in all that raw data. The value in all of that is in getting really clever about aggregating that data and analyzing that data and making decisions based on that data. And then at the end of the day, it's about communication. Because you heard today is, what makes people, what makes a loyal customer, et cetera, is an emotional connection, right? So if all that data in the world will not help you if you don't, at the end of the day, have somebody touch that customer and sell them something, or make them aware of a solution that you offer, make them aware of a service that you offer, et cetera. And this is really, at the end of the day, a lot of that data will result in human interaction. And that's why we've coined that phrase as Mitel gives machines a voice, because that's what we're focused on. At the end of the day, there is a communication touch point with an end customer, within a business, between businesses, etc. It's not just machines talking to machines. There's a lot of that going on in the background. But at the end of the day, it's going to be people. People dealing with each other. People making decisions. People making purchase decisions. And that's key to know. And around that, we've created a reference architecture in the cloud to enhance and play with all these contact center interactions that we've seen before, where all of these IoT devices that live out there and connect to the cloud can interface with an IoT through a microservice infrastructure, can interface with our cloud platform. And within that cloud platform, you can now create business rules, a business rules engine that then in turn enables you to make communication workflows happen on the other side. And we don't do that by replacing everything you have. We do that by integrating that technology with everything you have. You can link your existing PBX or voice switch or UC solution to that kind of infrastructure. You can reuse your contact center and enhance it accordingly and make those interactions more meaningful, more context-rich, quicker, more satisfying for the customer, because the customer that calls in or complains about something, you can already tell them what the answer is because you have all this diagnostic information from the sensors on his device or whatever when he calls into support. And we have a really plastic example of that because that may sound all pretty abstract and a little bit way out there and not really tangible. So a really good example of giving machines a voice is what we did in Paris, France at Charles de Gaulle Airport. With a partner of ours, we implemented a solution that does a very simple thing. It helps save lives. Because what they had is, they had a lot of these defibrillator cabinets on the walls throughout the airport. So there was legislation put in place a few years ago, so they had to put them in there. So, in the terminals, they just put in defibrillators, with a certain spacing, etc. They were all there. The problem is they were just devices on the wall, not connected to anything. So if something happened in that airport, somebody had a heart attack, heart problem, whatever, somebody could walk up to that cabinet, take out the defibrillator, and try to help the person. The problem is nobody was notified, no emergency response services. So they had to call in. They're in an airport building, a lot of security around, etc. But the only way to make yourself known is you call in. Say, we have an emergency here, we need a doctor. Then, all the time lost describing, where are you? How do you describe somebody where you are in an airport that you don't know? How efficiently is that going to work? So the only thing they did is they put in a sensor into that cabinet and hooked it up to the airport network. And then connected that piece back with Mitel technology into the emergency response center, which is, at the end of the day, it's a contact center. That's what it is. So when something happens now is somebody opens that cabinet door, the sensor puts a notification into the emergency response center and says, you know what? Cabinet door was opened on defibrillator, alarm. That goes all the way straight to the contact center. The contact center can now take a look at, and they know the location, right? Because, when they installed the sensors, they basically hard-coded that information into the system. So they know which sensor it is, where it is, etc., when it happened, within seconds. So they can look for the next available, first responder. And that could be, a policeman or anybody else working for the airport. And there's lots of people there. So the likelihood, chances are, the next first responder is really close. He's going to get there. And he can then, with voice services, get in touch immediately with the first responder services that know the location, etc., describe the situation, get a doctor, say, you know what, it's not that bad, they opened it, but the guy's doing fine, so, no rush, whatever it takes, and they can resolve the situation. And then there's more technologies. We showed, or we didn't show the video piece. That first responder could take out his smartphone and basically, start a video session with a doctor right on the scene and, have the help there 2 minutes sooner. And that's exactly the kind of difference that those types of technologies and IoT can make in those types of situations. So this is a really simple example, but it just goes to show is, it's simple things. Doing very, very simple things better can make a really big difference for a customer. And in that case, for that airport customer, a really big difference because it can mean, the difference between life and death. And there's lots more examples out there, not as drastic, but where, a simple improvement, you save your customer 5 minutes in a contact center queue. You resolve something, an incident 20 minutes quicker. And it's not just about internal efficiency. A lot of times the whole IoT discussion immediately gets drawn on internal efficiency things and saying, you know what, if we do that, we can do everything 10% faster and we can lay off this and that many people. But that's the wrong discussion. The discussion needs to be is, how can we leverage IoT devices, all that data created, to actually do what we do and do it better? And that's really the discussion that needs to happen, and the discussion we as Mitel, as a vendor, want to help with and work together with you guys to help you succeed in the market. Thanks a lot for your attention.